Today I'm going to bring you the story of three female students at Smith College, which neighbors the college we did last week, Mount Holyoke. Jeannie Robinson of Elizabethtown, North Carolina, on the morning of Friday, November 13th, 1925, was found dead in the kitchenette of her dorm room at Smith College in Massachusetts. She was a senior at the college. The medical examiner declared her death to be due to accidental asphyxiation. She had plans to attend a Yale-Princeton football game the next day, Saturday, and allegedly had gone into her kitchenette to iron her clothes for her trip to the game in New Haven. It's assumed she turned the gas on the stove and either tripped and fell or somehow fainted before she could light the gas jet. So with the gas on all night, she was basically unconscious all night and died early the morning of the 13th. And that's all that would be said about Jeannie, really. Her death garnered little attention in the papers. That is until Alice Corbett entered the discussion. Why? Well, Alice Corbett of Utica, New York, age 20 and a junior at Smith College, she disappeared on Friday the 13th, the day that Jeannie died. Coincidence? I don't know. But Jeannie and Alice were friends, attending the same college. And I'll just say right now, no, there is no insinuation that Alice did anything to Jeannie. Jeannie's death did by all accounts appear to be completely accidental. But rather, why did Alice disappear? We'll get into possibilities in a little bit, but I don't think it was because of Jeannie. I'm not altogether sure Alice would have even known what had happened to Jeannie by the time Alice disappeared. According to Mrs. Laura Scale, warden of the college, she said that Alice was, quote, in a confused state of mind, end quote. This apparently was seen in a sealed letter in Alice's room, addressed to her mother, but it was not mailed. Alice's father, James Corbett, has arrived at the school and put up a $500 reward. We are a few days after the disappearance. Police and detectives are out searching and asking people stuff. A druggist was shown her picture and said he had thought he had seen her that Friday morning, buying refreshments and asking when the next trolley left for Springfield. She was wearing a yellow slicker. But the trolley motorman and conductor of that trolley said that there were a few people on that car and they could not recall any girl matching Alice's description. The woods around Northampton were being scoured. All sorts of stories, of course. It's believed that Alice left to head to Pawtucket to elope with a mystery man. When the couple applied for the marriage license, they gave fake addresses, also to the pastor of the church that married them. Apparently, the young woman very much resembled Alice. This lead, like many, wouldn't pan out. Supposedly, Alice did have a boyfriend of sorts named Thomas Sterling, who was going to school at Amherst. Several love letters written to him by Alice were found, and supposedly the young couple had been quarreling over another girl, and that Alice had asked Sterling to buy her poison. A couple of the lines she had written him, quote, "To be with you is everything because I love you so. I love you to distraction," end quote. Sterling apparently keeps a list of all of his dates with girls, and let's just say he gets around. On November 6th, 1 week before the disappearance, Alice wrote her mother, asking her mother to destroy all of Sterling's letters to Alice. November 19th. Private sanitariums and hospitals have been searched for Alice. The reward offered by Alice's father has been increased to $1,000. Some doctors, after having examined a letter Alice had written her parents, believe that mental illness, beyond anything else, is what is attributing to Alice's disappearance. November 21st. Alice is believed to be somewhere in the vicinity of Whiting's Peak, after linemen working in the area were shown a picture of Alice. They said that she had visited their camp and pointed a revolver at them and demanded food. Whatever they gave her, she wolfed it down and went back into the woods. A different man, not of the linemen but in the same general area, said that he saw a girl with a revolver ordering him to get out of the area. So why didn't the linemen try to detain her? Well, they're working out in the woods for days and didn't exactly have a radio or television right there. They didn't know that a Smith College girl had disappeared. A cabin near Whiting's Peak had been seen with the lights on the last 2 nights. It's thought that perhaps Alice may be staying in it, but the next day a search was done of the cabin and it was said that she could not have occupied it. December 3rd. No news. Alice's father has put out a description of her. She's 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighs 112 pounds, has dark bobbed hair, and gray eyes. She was thought to have been wearing a yellow slicker when she disappeared, with a brown hat and a henna-colored dress. So, a new lead of sorts. Captain Ayers of the Missing Persons Bureau was told that Alice had boarded a train to New York, so now New York is being searched. Others think this will go nowhere. Like Bertha last week, some believe that Alice took her own life by drowning in the Connecticut River. A man reported seeing something yellow floating in the river and going over the Holyoke Dam. Could it have been her yellow raincoat? Patrolmen are searching the area. Part of a Walt Whitman poem written on a piece of paper was found on the bank of the Connecticut River. It was written in shorthand and says, quote, "I must test this fear of mine. God, such a hopeless mess of things. However, I will say with Whitman, to confront hunger, storms, ridicule as the trees and do. This dissect of fear disgusts me, and are none of them courageous enough to test the beliefs they hold?" End quote. The second theory is that she is in Troy, New York. A newsboy said that a young woman had bought a paper from him and was reading the headlines. She asked the boy if he knew whether or not the Corbett girl had been found. He said she had not, and the girl allegedly said, quote, "I do not see how they can find her. She goes from city to city," end quote. She then headed over a bridge to Troy, and the boy contacted the police. December 21st. Detectives have given up all hope of finding her. March 29th, 1926. It's about 4 months later, and the police are having the Connecticut River patrolled at Hartford in the belief that Alice's body may show up there. And it's been another 4 months, and mill canals in Holyoke are being dragged, raking out the debris and such, and in a few days the canals at Windsor Locks will be next. It's October 19th, 1927. James Corbett has renewed his offer of a $1,000 reward for finding his daughter, dead or alive. May 2nd, 1928. And as far as I know, Alice Corbett was never found. State Detective Joseph Daly, who was in charge of this search, believes that she ended her own life. Alice was depressed because of her boyfriend/fiancé, depending on which newspaper you read, and his wandering eye. And then last we have Frances St. John Smith, 18 years old and a student at Smith College, like Alice, disappeared on January 13th, 1928, which was also a Friday the 13th, like Alice. A reward of $1,000 is offered. She's the daughter of a New York broker, and yes, they do have some money in their pockets. Supposedly, Frances herself is worth $2 million. She was made a beneficiary of a relative's will recently for the $2 million. Why the family would openly admit this right now baffles me. Let's welcome aboard the false leads and ransom threats. Now, in the papers I have access to, there was really no mention of her until January 16th, when already the false leads were starting. False lead. New London, Connecticut, January 16th. Frances was allegedly seen by a government forester. She was in a roadster parked outside of a store, and her car was being stocked with snacks. He saw her tearing up a letter and throwing it in a trash can. Already apparently recognizing her as Frances, he fished the letter out and saw that the name Smith was written on the envelope. When asked, local police were not aware of this incident. On the same day, because Frances, according to the false lead, is allegedly driving a roadster, a farmer in West Hampton said that he saw a girl resembling Frances near his farm, only 6 miles from the college. Searchers were sent out to the woods. Frances's parents have arrived, and the detectives are looking into a report that Frances was having some sort of Christmas romance with a man living in the Boston area. Her relatives deny the story, but she had apparently met this man when she was at the Milton Academy the year before, which is also outside of Boston. Milton Academy, at least now, serves kids in grades kindergarten through 12th and as a private school. False lead, Bristol, Connecticut. A local attorney named George Ward said he saw a young woman a couple of days after Frances's disappearance. He had offered a lift to the girl who appeared to be walking towards Bristol. She allegedly asked him, "Are you looking for me?" He was surprised by this question and answered no. He never said if he gave her a ride, but he did realize later on when he saw a newspaper, he was positive that it had been Frances. 2 clerks and another woman at a Hartford drugstore claimed that they saw a girl dressed like Frances and looking like Frances. State Detective Joseph Daly, who also had been on Alice's case, said he was looking into the possibility of a kidnapping, but wouldn't elaborate. Also, authorities are not negating the possibility of an elopement. January 18th. New police theory that she's been killed by a maniac. They believe that theory could go hand in hand with the disappearance of Alice, considering both were killed on a Friday the 13th. Now, was Friday the 13th a thing back then like it is now? Apparently, at some point in our history, Fridays were unlucky, and the number 13 was unlucky, and combined, it was very bad. It may have come about in the Victorian era. And some cultures consider both to be good, so who knows? In any case, what I read in the newspapers wasn't much like, "Oh no, Friday the 13th, Jason's gonna get you." It was more like, they were both killed on the same day of the week and on the same date, and they didn't find that to be just mere coincidence. At this point, the family does fear that she was kidnapped to be held for ransom. Many higher-ups in various states known to the Smith family are getting the cogs of justice in motion. Still working on the theory of a maniac, police are searching the woods around the local state hospital for the insane and questioning the staff about any potential absences. January 19th. Another theory was obliterated. It was thought that Frances had tried to go to Troy, New York, when a girl resembling Frances was at the Hendrick Hudson Hotel. But no, that young woman was Miss Orsh, a New York City cloak model. Another false lead was that Frances had eloped with the son of the Penn State College football coach. Apparently, he had gone missing from Hanover, New Hampshire, had been traced to Frances's area, and had told someone he was engaged to a wealthy New York girl. But he didn't show up to the area until the day after Frances disappeared. And then he said he didn't know her. Apparently, Frances's only boyfriend was a Frederick Ward Cates at Amherst, who has been at the college this whole time and has been also part of the search party. He was eliminated as a suspect or as having any knowledge about her whereabouts. January 20th. Frances's mom is not doing well, as you can imagine. She issued a public message to her daughter. Quote, "To Frances St. John Smith, Frances, my darling, please come to Father and me, or send word to us here at Hotel Northampton, or, if it is nearer and easier, to Miss Hamilton and Nana at 129. We long so for the happiness of having you back, and we need and miss you so. Dearest love, Mother." End quote. Miss Hamilton was Frances's governess. The reference to 129 is their home at 129 East 70th Street in New York City. The reward has been increased to $10,000 if she is found alive. $1,000 otherwise. State Detective Joseph Daly feels certain that she is deceased and has focused his attention on rivers, ponds, canals, and woodlands in the area. Oh, that I could tell you all of the leads and tips. We'd be here for days. Needless to say, a lot of people said they saw her. No one seemed to be able to get the police to come to see the alleged Frances. For the most part, the feds had not been involved until now, because U.S. postal inspectors are looking into a letter claiming a ransom that was addressed to Mr. St. John Smith, Frances's father. January 23rd. Frances's mother has sent out another public letter to Frances. Quote, "Dearest Frances, we want you to know that we are thinking of nothing but your safety and happiness. If you are safe and wish to make a different life for yourself, we do not want to interfere, but to help you if we can. But we do want to know if you are safe. Won't you write to Aunt Susie or MT to say that you are safe? They will see that your confidence is respected and your wishes carried out. Above all, we want you to come home. But if you wish quiet and seclusion, they will see that you have it. We want no explanation. We only want to care for you and know that you are safe. We get through the day only because we hope every hour to hear from you. With dearest love, Mother and Father. January 24th. Captain John Ayers, head of the Bureau of Missing Persons, stated that disappearances of girls and young women are on the increase. Yes, I would say that appears to be true. Why? He said it was for 3 reasons. Conditions are not congenial at home, they are seized with the spirit of adventure, or they become boy crazy. He said, quote, "The unadjusted home is responsible in most cases." Apparently, 1927, New York City had 21,800 persons reported missing, 600 more than the previous year. Quote, "It's a pitiful fact that the parents themselves are responsible for most girls running away from home. Too often they do not understand their children. They will not accept the new ideas of today. They are too rigid in their attitude toward their girls, too intolerant of the ideas of the modern youth. They try to force their will upon the growing girl, and often the result is disastrous. The girl leaves home. The spirit of adventure takes second place as the cause of girls and boys leaving the family circle. They seek new worlds to conquer. Girls in small towns and rural districts make up this class. Many of them head for New York, thinking that here they can improve their economic position or perhaps achieve success on the stage. They find that the high cost of maintenance in New York is out of proportion to any increase in wages they may obtain. They learn, too, that the stage is not an easy road to success, and that the road to stardom is beset with pitfalls. The end is too often disillusionment. Another big factor is that so many girls are boy crazy. They think of little else. They feel that their parents are holding them down. The hometown is too small, too restricted for them, and they depart for the big cities, some never to be heard of again." End quote. Captain Ayers, who has been searching for missing people for 10 years, carefully examines the missing person's picture for clues. What does the person strike them as? Quote, "Where would a girl of this type be likely to go? The face tells the story. You can easily tell the difference between the ambitious type, who might be found working in a public library or a store, and the boy-crazy type, who might be located in a cheap dance hall. So many of the girls who run away have discontent written all over their face." End quote. So what's the remedy, Captain? Quote, "I would advise the parents to make their homes as pleasant and congenial as possible for their sons and daughters. Make it pleasant for the girls to entertain their boyfriends. Do not be too strict. In the big cities like New York, the community centers are doing great work. It is often impossible for girls who live in crowded homes to enjoy life as other girls do, and they find an outlet in the community center. Girls of 16 and 17 want to express themselves. Foreign-born parents in particular do not understand this. They do not realize their daughter is trying to improve herself, and their obstinacy and lack of understanding cause more runaways in New York City than in any other factor." End quote. What's interesting about that is how nowadays some say that those who get themselves into trouble are because they are allowed too much freedom and don't come from strict homes. Interesting. We're continuing with the false leads. Ransom letters are pouring into the Smith's house, including one demanding that the parents send $2,500 to an address in the Bronx that same day. So we've heard Captain Ayers' side of things. What say you, eminent psychologist Dr. H.L. Hollingsworth? Girls of the college age are going through periods of storm and stress mentally. They are baffled by the complexity of modern life. However, he couldn't say that any of this was true with regards specifically to Frances. He just said it was a generalization. Quote, "Girls of 16, 17, and 18 and thereabouts undergo a shift in feeling and attitude. They are in the throes of trying to find themselves. On all sides they find problems. To the adult mind these problems seem simple enough, but to the young girl they loom large and often insurmountable. There is the problem of religion. Which of the numerous teachings should she accept? She's beginning to think for herself and she's puzzled. Then there is the problem of higher education, the disturbing question of her popularity or social status, her progress or lack of progress in the classrooms, her relations with other girls, her changing ideas, and how they may be failing to conform with the teaching of her parents. These problems, and many more, all sweeping conflicts to the girl of the emotional type. A girl of the adolescent age and a little older is sought after by young men. She is no longer a child. Realizing this, she may seek to become a woman overnight, adopting affectations, exaggerations, imitative attitudes, and enthusiasms. She chooses her reading with new motives. She assumes new privileges and responsibilities, meets new temptations, plays different games, and is accepted on a different basis of understanding and expectations. The physical changes and the mental adjustments to which they may lead may conspire to produce in some girls a period of storm and stress. They are indeed a psychological study. They are often in a mental turmoil, pondering the problems of ethics and philosophy, human evolution and destiny. They sometimes question the foundation of their conventional religious institutions. They have begun to study and think. They work themselves up into an intellectual frenzy. The intellectually superior adolescent girl feels a new freedom. She may rebel against the established order of things. She may find her mind in conflict with the attitude of her parents, regarding their dignified insistence on the proprieties very annoying. She may even revolt against her own makeup and work to reshape her personality. In short, our young girls are often very complex personalities, and it is difficult to tell exactly what motive prompts them to do something drastic, such as running away from college." End quote. According to the newspaper, there are colleges who have psychiatrists on their payroll to study female students who become nervously and mentally upset. Quote, "The tendency of the morose type is towards suicide, while the more optimistic and adventurous type run away." End quote. That's from the Washington Times, January 25th, 1928. The rewards for Frances are now at about $14,000. She's literally being searched for all over the country, wherever the tips take the police. Many are claiming to have seen Frances. That has not ended, though it's been about 2 weeks since her disappearance. January 28th, 1928. A girl by the name of Miss Koss told police that she had been with Frances this last week and is personally acquainted with her, but will not say where Frances is. Miss Koss is being held in the jail for being a delinquent, waiting for her dad to show up. Letters from Miss Koss to her parents have caused the searches to shift to the South today. Not South Connecticut or Massachusetts, but like Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama. Miss Koss declares that Frances was fighting her way against the world to go against the criticisms of her family and teachers. Apparently, she had a job giving away chewing gum. However, Miss Koss's parents are not really believing their own daughter's story, stating that Miss Koss herself had run away after her parents moved to Ohio, and she had just left right after Christmas. They had received letters from her from Arkansas, signed under a different name, but they recognized her handwriting. Miss Koss was explaining her absence by blaming Frances in a very vague way, and nothing came of the story. January 30th, 1928. Ongoing theories are that she took her own life or amnesia. Some detectives are searching restaurants and movie theaters in case Frances has quit school and is trying to take a job as a piano player. Supposedly, she's very talented. Like Bertha in last week's episode, Frances wrote an essay while she was at Milton Academy prior to college, and they are grasping onto things she wrote. Her thesis was called Unalloyed Bliss, and in it she wrote that she wanted to run away. And she stated in the essay that she did not do so because there was really no reason for her to, and that if she did run away, she may feel some regret and or fear, which would take away from the feeling of freedom of running away. Apparently, she was reprimanded by her parents for some low marks during that recent Christmas break, that she had been given a talking to by her ma for having a poor showing in school. Her mother, of course, thinking that this may have sent Frances over the edge, is beside herself. One of the things Frances had been told, quote, "You are being given a fine opportunity in school and must make the most of it. Your father is having to make sacrifices in order to keep you in school," end quote. Apparently, though the family is thought to be well off, Mr. Smith, who had been retired as a broker, did end up going back to work. Now, her parents don't really think she had taken her own life, but rather she had run away, so she would no longer be a burden to them and could make her own way in life. January 31st, 1928. A draft letter found in Frances's wastepaper basket, according to the newspaper, showed that she was not doing mentally well. Quote, January 11th, Dearest Miss Hamilton. That was her governess. It was exactly 9 years ago that you came, wasn't it? I would give anything in the world to have it 1919. Thank you so much for your lovely letters. It seems hateful to be back to college. That is my fault, not the college's. I must get ready for supper. After supper. Please, if you can, forgive me for behaving so on the vacation, talking about myself all the time. I do so hope that things are going well for you and that you will soon find the sort of work that you really enjoy. End quote. Now me, I really don't see this as a major sign of depression, but I'm not a psychologist. February 2nd, 1928. Police are going on a few theories if she took her own life, so they're searching rivers and ponds. State Detective Joseph Daly is now on the ransom angle. Ransom, February 4th. A man wrote a ransom letter regarding Frances demanding $10,000. A decoy package of money was left for him, and the police caught him picking it up. The ransom letter declared that he and his sister were holding Frances prisoner, and she would be freed when they were given $10,000 and 2 railroad tickets to San Francisco. Quote, when Miss Frances heard me talking about J. Hopkins Smith, her uncle, searching in Springfield, she let out a scream and wanted to know if Uncle James knew about what had happened there. I tell you, we nearly lost our minds on account of that, and it put my sister in bed, so I had to take care of both of them. Little did I realize late Saturday afternoon, the 14th of January, when I offered to give Frances a lift, I was getting my sister and myself in such serious trouble for doing good, for we were both sorry for her. End quote. Apparently, this was not his first ransom note either. False lead, February 8th. A Miss Begman said she saw who she believed to be Frances wearing men's clothes and riding on a subway train. February 11th. Frances's schoolmate and friend, Fawn Washburn, was withdrawn from Smith College by her father. Though exact reasons were not given, it was thought that he was not satisfied with the level of protection given the students. Apparently, this was the third withdrawal in 2 weeks. False lead, February 21st. A Mrs. Drayton is in San Francisco, and some believe that it may actually be Frances. A lady in New York claimed that she recognized Mrs. Drayton as being Frances. Then a girl in Chico, California, bought a train ticket, and her looks were so similar to Frances that it caused the police to renew their search. March 8th. Postal inspectors arrested a man as a suspect in Frances's disappearance, but mainly he was just charged with attempting to use mail to defraud. He was caught looking out for a package left for him, which is a decoy, after having mailed a ransom demand for Frances. He admitted he had sent a threatening letter to Frances's father. He claimed to not know anything about Frances's whereabouts, just that he wanted some money. Apparently, the letter held a demand for $50,000 in unregistered and uninsured bills. False lead, March 16th. Conductor of the train from Springfield to Montreal believed that Frances had joined a convent on the outskirts of Quebec City. So, unfortunately, unlike Alice Corbett, Frances would be found, but this is not a happy ending. After being missing for 14 months, Frances's body was found in the Connecticut River, March 19, 1929. Her body was identified by Dr. Carlton Wood, her dentist, who had performed some special work on her teeth some 3 years ago. Due to the condition of the body, there would have been no other way to identify her. Autopsy was performed that her cause of death was drowning, sustained under circumstances undetermined. And so passes Frances out of this story. Her family feared that she had broke down from overstudy, but also that this was accidental. These stories are sad, no matter what happened to them or what you surmise happened to them. Your college years really are just a tumultuous time. You're on your own, somewhat. You have your own choices to make, somewhat. But you, in some cases, are still abiding by the wishes of your parents and feel that pressure to do well and that longing to be an adult. And being a female and going to college in these days, particularly for Bertha in the late 1800s, not unheard of, but not the norm, I would say, either. It should have been a wonderful time of learning and socializing and making something out of yourself, taking advantage of the opportunities given you. But that's not what happened here. Even Jeannie, who did not go missing but fell victim to a horrific accident when she was getting ready to have an enjoyable weekend, you just never know when life can take a turn. So, not sure what I have coming up, but just a warning. I do love me some Halloween, and I'm probably going to do something a little different for the rest of October. It's all in good fun, so please join me. See you.